Hey, good evening, folks. Welcome to the first ever Mountaineering Scotland Facebook Live question and answer session. So we've got a panel of experts here to answer your questions and give essential advice. Loads of people have sent in questions to us, and we're going to try and get through as many questions as possible. But first off, you could help us a wee bit by just pressing the like or love button to let us know you're actually out there and you can hear us clearly, so we know who's listening in. So get on there, post your comments and questions. We'll answer as many as possible over the next 40 minutes, and if you tag a friend as well, that'd be awesome. We're here live from Aviemore in the MacDonald Aviemore Highland Resort, who are hosting the event, and it's particularly timely because we've got some snow on the hill at the moment, and we're hoping it's going to stay for the rest of the winter. So we've got an expert panel here. There's myself, Heather Morning, Mountain Safety Advisor with Mountaineering Scotland, and then there's a whole settee full of experts here. Over to the boys.
Hello, my name's John Jones. I'm representing Glenmore Lodge, and I'm the head of Mountaineering, and I've been at Glenmore Lodge now full time for 17 years.
You don't look that old, John.
And hi, I'm Mark Diggins. I run the Scottish Avalanche Information Service, head up a team of 16 avalanche forecasters that go out on the hills every day of the winter, and their job really is to gather information about the avalanche hazard, and that goes onto the website, and really it's about giving information which helps you identify where the hazardous places are, and really the whole idea is so you can enjoy the mountains with more safety.
Finally.
Hi, I'm Heavy Wally from Mountain Rescue Scotland. I've got 40 years experience of the mountain rescue, mainly with the raft teams in Scotland and in Wales, and with the Torridon team up north, so hopefully I'll be able to answer most of your mountain rescue questions.
Brilliant. What a strong team, guys. So we're going to head to the first question that's come in, and that's, what is the best tip you'd give someone heading out into the hills in winter? And I think, John, you might be the person for that one.
Yeah, I can answer that one. I suppose the biggest tip we'd give to folk heading out in winter is to start early. It's always easier to start early and walk into the daylight rather than leaving later and having to end up walking into the dark. It always takes longer to walk off the hill, in the dark than it does in daylight. So start early, and then you've got plenty of time to enjoy your day.
Yeah, brilliant tip, particularly this time of year with such short daylight hours.
Yeah, this time of year is probably the time of year that it does catch people out because they're still in sort of summer mode a little bit.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's getting darker back at 4 now up here. So.
And
Lots
also,
of tips, yeah.
and also actually in the winter time, you've got to be aware that it can be physically more tiring. So actually, when you come in off the hill, you're going to be slower. Might be deep snow, so you will definitely take longer, as John says. So as the nights come in pretty fast, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock-ish now, you've got to be pretty sharp in terms of getting up and getting out pretty quick.
Yeah, unless you're good at your night now, of course.
Yeah, and make sure your torch is working, very important, I think.
Yeah.
And your battery, and it's even worthwhile carrying a spare little torch with you, because usually you might meet somebody with no torch.
Yeah. There's been a lot of mountain rescues over the years,
and
because people haven't had a torch.
If you watch the papers now, this is when people forget the torch, or it's not working, they've not checked it, so it's worth checking your torch every time, especially now.
Yeah. I think that leads us really nicely into the next question, doesn't it? What kit should I not leave home without in the snow? Good one, eh? That's an interesting one, because there's of course a huge amount of kit that you might need when out in the snow. So I think I'm going to kick off with that, and I'm going to think about what I would have on my feet. And my boots would be very different to what I wore in the summer. So in summer I'll wear quite lightweight, flexible boots, but when I'm heading out in the snow, I definitely want a bit more rigidity in the soles. So boots are actually rated from B1, B for boot, and B1 through to B3. So B3 are the most rigid boots, B1 are the most bendy of winter boots, and B1, 2 and 3 do different jobs for different activities on the hill in winter. So if you're not sure about what sort of boots to get for heading out in the winter, then take a look at our website, and there's loads of information on there. But that's just something on the bottom of your feet. I think the boys will probably like to add to that.
Yeah, definitely. So obviously, boots are important, but then also, what you're wearing. So, it's a lot colder in winter. You've got the wind to think about. You've got the precipitation. You've got the changing in temperature. Also, it takes a lot of energy to walk in winter. So walking in deep snow, like Mark was saying. So having the sort of clothing that's going to work for that is really important. So layering is really important. It's important to have layers that are going to keep the wind off. It's important that you've got gloves, for example, that you can use. So it's great having gloves that are going to keep your hands warm, but you need gloves that you can keep your hands warm, but work your compass, use your phone, adjust your goggles, all that kind of thing. And also making sure you've got warm hat, you've got goggles, and basically you're protected against the elements. So that would be the next sort of key thing, really.
Going back to the gloves, John, I often have more than one pair with me. Do you?
Yeah, totally. So I'd say, in winter, really, we recommend folk you have 2 or 3 pairs. Yeah. And it might be everything from a liner to a mid-layer sort of glove that you can use for, working your compass. But also you might have a big pair of mitts in there. Yeah. So if you do have a stage where maybe you left your liners on for too long, you might throw your big mitts over the top just to get warm for a bit. So, and stuff that's going to keep the wind out, So. Yeah, pretty important.
Boys, got anything to add there?
For me, the most important item of clothing is gloves, because if you get your hands cold, you're totally incapacitated. You can't actually do anything. You can't open a pocket. You can't navigate. You can't hold your compass. So if you lose your gloves, you're in real trouble. Yeah. So personally, I carry about 4 pair. So working gloves, then they get wet and damp, I change it to a warmer pair. Then if it gets really cold, it's buried at the bottom of a rucksack, I have a nice thick pair of mitts.
What's your favourite bit of kit in winter heavy? Do you have a favourite?
I like a bothy bag or a little warm duvet. The lightweight duvet is so easy to carry nowadays.
Yeah.
A bothy bag is great, especially if somebody has a wee problem with it. Also, you get out the wind and stuff with it. Yeah. But crampons and ice axe is essential in the winter. But it's pointless having them, as you go out and people still got the wrappers on them, more or less. So you've got to learn how to use them. Yeah. And the best way to do that is go out with somebody experienced or do a course and get the gen. And if you've done it once, that doesn't mean you're an expert. Every winter, practice it. Because that ice axe will save your life. Yeah.
Let's go back to that bothy bag, because some people call that different things, don't they? What is a bothy bag heavy, and what else are they called, and how does it work?
Well, bothy bags is just a piece of nylon, really, or various material that you can put over the party. And you can. It's quite light.
It's almost like a fly sheet tent, but without any frame or anything.
And the great thing with them, you're instant out the wind, out the weather, no matter what it is. And if one of your friends is struggling, you're with them. Yeah. But it's not like a survival bag; they're on their own, and that's a huge thing in the mountain rescue thing. You've got company, you've got people. The other thing as well, in the winter, if the weather's bad, you don't really see what's going on, but when you have your break, you can see how everybody is, and that's very important in the winter. As in the summer, you're looking after each other all the time.
Yeah. And they come in different sizes, don't they? You don't have to have a massive thing. You can get you and your pal out.
You can get a 2-man. You can get a 2-man, 4-man. You can, and in the mountain rescue, we had 12 men.
They only have men, obviously, in mountain rescue.
No, that was wrong.
But the key thing about a 4-person or 6-person bothy is is the amount of heat that's generated in there, and that's the key thing. Not only do you get out of the weather, but also you will generate some heat in there. So when it comes to you don't just have to use it as an emergency. You can use it when you're having your lunch, when you're just stopping to have a rest, when you're stopping to change a layer. A lot of time people will stop, and they'll stop in probably the windiest place, thinking, oh, it's cold, I now need to change and add another layer on. Well, get in your group bothy and do that, so you can get a bit of shelter.
And in a mountain rescue, in a mountain rescue situation, they're incredible because they're very bright. You can see them. You can see them from a long way off. So if one of them is up and the weather's reasonable, that's great because the helicopter and other people can see them.
It's good basic.
Great.
To have
well worth it. One of the best things you can buy.
I mean, a lot of good advice there, and I think you know, it takes a lot of thought, a lot of preparation before you head out on in winter, because if you get the kit sorted, then you're very likely to, you know, have a better day out. And one question just in, guys, and it's a really interesting one. It's one of my pet hates. Is there's lots of different types of crampon out there which do lots of different jobs, but there's an awful lot of what I call granny creepers or something like that. But trail crampons, these kind of rubber things with little studs on them, they're a lot cheaper than the sort of traditional crampon. And yeah, interesting. What do we think about those?
They're good on the street, on the high street, for crossing icy paths, and no more. One may think that you could wear them and they give you security in the mountains, but no, I wouldn't.
I use them walking the dog on
icy
kind of
great
forest track.
And icy car parks, that kind of thing. Go to the shops.
Very low level icy paths, but they're not for the mountains at all.
And it's largely because, you know, on the flat, you know, they will work, but as soon as you get into any angle, you really need the teeth in crampons to help you grip onto the snow slope or ice slope, actually.
I think the important thing is, if people are thinking about buying crampons, is go to a reputable outdoor supplier and get some advice from the staff there if you're new to it, or go back to our website, guys. It's got a great section on boots and crampons, and have a look at the information there. We got another question in, boys. Whiteout. Okay, what's our advice if we get caught out in a whiteout? Well, that happens on a regular basis to me in winter. I think, Mark, you've probably got a lot of experience of this.
We're in the hills pretty much every day in the winter, and we are out in whiteout conditions. And maybe an explanation of what that actually means is that it's really when the sky merges with the ground, which is snow covered, and there's no horizon. So it's almost like being in a white polythene bag, and so you get no features to look at. You've really distance. You can't work out distance, and it is incredibly challenging to navigate. So you've got to be really confident in your navigation, using a compass and a map. And so to get caught out in that is, you know, you've got to be well prepared. And if you're not comfortable with your navigation, then I would say you've really got to take note of the weather forecast and make sure that you know, you've got a pretty good forecast if you're not confident about navigating and moving around in the winter.
Yeah, the place to learn how to navigate is not in a whiteout on a Cairngorm Plateau, is it?
No.
Heavy, you must have been involved with a few rescues over the years where people have got caught out in whiteout. What sort of things happen?
Well, people get completely lost and stuck, or they walk over edges, the cornices, which they can't see because, exactly as Mark said, you can't see where you're going, so you're walking in a bearing, you're not sure, and next minute you're over an edge or a cornice. So you've got to be very, very careful. And the way to learn is to navigate somewhere safe and practice your skills all the time.
John, there's some good tips for getting away from cornices in winter, aren't there, if it's white out and you're thinking about your navigation?
There are, but I just want to take a step back from that before, as it were, before you shout about that. In what can happen in winter, and you know, something we see a lot with students who come on courses is that they might be practiced as summer navigators, but it's a very different navigating in summer as it is in winter. And what can catch people out is they'll take their summer navigation skills into winter, and they've pushed the environment they're in a bit too quickly. And that's where I'll definitely highlight what Heavy's saying there is, you know, build up to it in practice in, you know, maybe whether it's, you know, if it is a snowy winter, then just practice your navigation skills a little bit lower down on the hill, or in a safer environment where there isn't a risk of edges or cornices. And because, you know, like Mark was saying about the whiteout, you know, you actually sometimes can't tell what is up and what is down. You know, absolutely. And even for us who are experienced, you know, we'll struggle with that as well, working that out.
But can I just add to that? I think one tip, actually, one of the great challenges when you're on a compass bearing is you keep drifting off to the side, because in the summer you sort of aim at something, you see a rock ahead that's on the bearing and you walk to it, but in winter you have nothing. And so one tip is potentially to take a bearing on the tracks that you've made. Take a reciprocal bearing, and that'll tell you if you're going straight or not. So you turn the compass around. So instead of the north needle being in the north, it's in the south, and that'll give you an idea of your line, if you're on line or not.
Yeah.
That's a great tip, actually.
Yeah.
And if say there's a couple of you in the party, then you can just have someone just slightly staggered back. You know, obviously making sure they're not out of the visibility, but 5-10 meters, and take the bearing back on them. That is a really useful advice, actually.
Yeah.
And you have to do this.
Oh yeah.
You know,
it's
this is
very
not.
important.
You have to do it.
Yeah.
You don't try. We've got to get off. We've got to go. You've got to navigate because a lot of accidents are. Majority are navigation.
And that will take time, and that's also what you teach people is that to navigate in a whiteout, it's not like navigating in summer where you're going to walk at 4 kilometres an hour and soon get off the hill. If you're navigating in true whiteout conditions, you might only be walking as fast as 1 kilometre an hour. And then of course that means it's going to take you a lot longer to get off the hill or get to safety, but also you're not going to keep as warm. So you need to think about your clothing and your spare duvet. So it's a big, it's a
big ask, isn't it? We've
got
it's
it's great, a great experience.
Piling in,
Yeah,
guys.
yeah,
I think we maybe should move on to.
Yeah.
Well, there's
subject.
another one that's maybe relevant,
Yeah.
and it's about people using. Should we use a compass? Or do you know what GPSs? Should people carry GPSs? That's an interesting point of view. My personal feeling is a compass. It's really important to know how to use a mapping compass first.
Yeah,
I
map
don't know
and
what your
compass is
thoughts.
your bread and butter skills, and I think GPSs have their place,
Yeah.
and certainly in whiteout they've
Yeah.
very much got
Yeah.
their place, but absolutely underpinned with those traditional map and compass
Because
skills.
batteries run out.
I think there's another question there. Should everybody carry a map and compass?
Yes, that's a good one.
And I worked in the rescue centre, not just I did the 40 years in Mountain Rescue, but I worked in the rescue centre for 4 years, which was very interesting because you're taking live calls from the hill and you were phoning them up. They were phoning you and saying, "This has happened, and where are you?" "I don't know because my companion has a map and he's fallen." So that was happening regularly. So everybody, you should have a map and compass, no matter who you are, and you should be showing people. One of the skills you learn when getting fit is a map and compass, which goes back to the accidents.
Absolutely.
So everybody, in my mind, should carry a map.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And
just
and get to know it. Practice somewhere safe and build up your skills. Don't be really ambitious early on in your winter career and choose an ambitious day out where your navigation ability doesn't match your ambition. So going out beforehand and practicing, say where there's less risk, maybe above the tree line, so that you can practice safely. But also
progressive approach.
Yeah, definitely a progressive approach.
Yeah.
And what we teach a lot of students is, everybody's got smartphones. We're sat here looking at a smartphone, and there is good mapping that you can get on your smartphone. So when you're practicing and you're practicing in a safe environment, you can practice how you are on walking on a bearing, your pacing, and then you can track yourself on your phone, and you can use that as a teaching tool for yourself.
Yeah.
So they have got their place, but as a place to help you practice, not as a place, as like, oh, I'm going to use this to definitely get me out of trouble, because that's when batteries can run out, you can drop it, break the screen, etc. So
good tips, but I think we're going to have to move on from navigation because there's lots of other interesting things coming in. Any advice on cooking in snow holes? Now that's an interesting one. I've done a lot of snow holing over the years, and a lot of cooking in snow holes, some extravaganzas in fact. So a couple of top tips I would say would be make sure that your stove is on top of your shovel blade so it doesn't gradually sink down into the floor of the snow hole and disappear, and also think about what sort of fuel you're using, because some fuel doesn't operate very well in cold conditions. So they'd be my 2 top tips, but I think the boys probably have a few snow holes under the belt as well. So, Heavy, what about you?
Well, we used to snow hole every year. 40 of us would go into the plateau for the winter course, and half of them had never been out in winter before, so it was quite an interesting introduction to Scotland. And I've seen most things in snow holes. Very important is the ventilation when you cook them. Number one, because there actually has been fatalities.
Carbon monoxide.
Yeah, carbon monoxide. So you've got to be aware of it, that you must have good ventilation in the snow hole. I mean, there's plenty of others, and the other thing is, when you're in that snow hole, it can all be going wrong outside, so you've got to keep your eye on what's going on. Very, very important, because once you're in that beautiful snow hole, you're out of it, and it can all be changing. And snow holes are built invariably where the snow gathers. And guess what, during the night, as the wind changes, the snow will gather probably where you dug your snow hole, and you'll be digging yourself out through the night. So, but there's marking Probably got a lot more than me on the snow holes.
Yeah, ventilation is the key.
Yeah.
I have been in a snow hole when we usually carry a candle
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
and it's lit, and I've had occasions in a snow hole when the candle's gone out because when it drifts in, the air gets
Gone.
cut out, it goes. You're breathing carbon dioxide. So yeah, ventilation is
Anyone
really
carry a
important.
canary in the snow?
No, but that's what we
What got you for? Can I come in there with the snow holing? Because obviously, I've done a lot of them, and I would say out of all the years I've been working at Glenmore Lodge, I still see snow holing as the most serious part of the job.
Yeah, I would agree.
And it's more serious than guiding people up climbs and taking folks up big climbs on Ben Nevis, etc. Yet there's a lot of judgment required with that, but the judgment required to snow hole is massive, and it's something that even now, the years I've been doing it, I'm still nervous about snow holing. I'm still very cautious, and we still consider massively where I go, what kind of slope I'm snow holing on, but also why am I going snow holing? So for me, it's my job. There's times I've got to go. I say I've got to go. Making decisions to go with a group. But I'd ask people out there, if you're going snow holing, well, why? Are you going for the experience? Well, that's great, but I would go with someone who's experienced in snow holing to help you with that experience. If it's something which you think you just want to try, then that's something I would steer against, and I would advise people to get advice or to go on a course and to find out more about snow holing, because it is a fantastic experience, but it is a really serious environment. And like Heavy was saying, you are digging into a slope that's covered in snow, which Mark then assesses.
Lovely
about the safety of
on
it.
to the next question that's come up, because I know that there's been situations where people have actually been avalanched in the sleeping bags in a snow hole, and do we need to be worried about avalanches in the winter? Mark, you seem the appropriate person to head this one up.
Thanks. Well, avalanches it's a natural hazard. It's something that occurs pretty much on a regular basis. Not all the time, but sometimes. Sorry, right, okay. But it's not all the time. So I think that what you need to do is to get good advice about avalanche hazard, and go to the our avalanche site, sas.gov.uk, and there you can get pretty good information about avalanches.
Yeah. I always think it's quite interesting, because sometimes I accidentally put in sais.org.uk, because a lot of our organisations have that, and it takes you through to a completely different place. So it's
Okay.
.gov.uk.
.gov.
Yeah.
.gov.uk. Yeah. Lovely.
Sorry.
So moving on, guys, we've got a few questions about mountain rescue here, and we do have Mr. Mountain Rescue with us, who has how many years involved with mountain rescue?
40 years, unfortunately.
Yeah. So I think you're probably well qualified to answer some of these questions. And obviously, we all hope that we never have to call out mountain rescue. But if we were in a situation where we had to, Heavy, what's your advice there?
But the first thing I think is the last resort really is call the team, call the mountain rescue, and not that they don't want to help you, because I think as mountaineers, first and foremost, we should try and be self-reliant with each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
And when I go on the hill with a group, no matter how experienced they are, I say, when we have a wee chat about everything before we go off, I say, how would you deal with if something happened to me? And we have a talk. So I think you should always have a talk with your people at the beginning, no matter who they are, and say, how would you deal with this? Because this is what would. Because if I have a problem, then this is what happens. So self-reliance is number one. And the next one is, it's not the mountain rescue call, it's actually the police, which a lot of people don't understand. So if you phone the mountain rescue, lovely people there, and they've got an office at Glenmore Lodge, there's nobody there most of the time, at night and stuff. So you phone the police.
So what number do people phone, Heavy, if they need
999,
help?
that's it.
Yeah.
And you get it.
Is there an alternative here?
No.
And you get 112?
Yeah,
Yeah,
112, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
For mobile.
but there we go. So you need that, and there's a great thing. I would also say in the hill, just going back to another thing, always carry a phone. Make sure you've got a spare battery with you, because that phone could be your answer out.
Yeah. And if people have poor reception, maybe they can't make a voice call.
There's a great service called the Emergency Tech Service that we use, and myself and Heather do lectures all over, and I always ask how many people have heard of this, and I would say 10% of the audience have heard of it. So it's it's free, it's easy. If you go on your website, you'll find out how you do it.
Yeah.
And it is the greatest thing in the world. Because no matter what the signal, you'll be able to get that message out. I need help, grid reference here, this is what's wrong, and help will come.
Just a top tip on the phone, and tell folks this on courses, you know, if you put your phone in flight mode, then you massively save your battery life. So, you know, if it's cold, and then of course you can take it out of that to send out a signal or make a phone call. But also, you know, when it comes to things like there's certain smartphones out there where you can't take a spare battery, so taking a power monkey.
Yeah.
But you know, it's got a couple of charges in it.
That's
So
what
in
I've got,
winter,
yeah.
I always take a power monkey out with me, because in winter you will go through your battery life in your phone far quicker.
In a couple of
especially
hours.
if it's especially if you leave it on the outside of your rucksack, on the outside top pocket. So it wants to be in your jacket. You want to keep it warm. That's really important.
Yeah. And we've just had a question in actually, which is going to be a difficult one to answer, because I think it might depend. But if you come across someone who needs some help, and you're able to call to the police and get help, do you stay with them, or would you just leave them?
Oh no,
What
I mean
do you think?
you should stay with them,
Yeah.
hopefully, and you know, as I said, and make sure it's an identifiable place where you're coming to. You know, sorry, you've got proper colours and you can see things like you get your red bothy bag out, because everybody's wearing black clothing. They need things to see. Very important that they see it, because a helicopter will come looking for you probably before the team if the weather's reasonable, and it needs to see you.
Yeah. And how long would it take, Heavy, from?
It all depends. I mean, it all depends where you are.
Yeah.
So if you're in the northern cottage, it could be quite quick. But remember, the helicopters are not just there for mountaineering. They're there for bringing babies, moving babies. They do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah. it's
So
like
there
medical
might not be a
transfer
helicopter.
and-
So if it's a team, it could be 2, 3 up northwest, 5, 6 hours. You could be out there.
Yeah.
Imagine standing on top of a hill for an hour with very little. Do it for 4 hours and see what you need to keep warm.
Yeah.
So it won't be instantaneous.
Yeah.
It doesn't work like that.
And there must be times when the helicopters can't fly,
Yeah.
even if they're
Yeah.
available.
And they can, and then it's up to the teams are already walking in, and it'll take a while. And to carry somebody off takes hours.
Yeah. Can they fly in the dark, Heavy, the helicopters?
Yeah, they have night vision goggles,
Yeah.
but again, it's a lot more difficult. Like as we said, when the whiteout, imagine in a whiteout, walking in a whiteout, it's a lot more difficult. It's a lot more slower. Walking with a torch at night, can you imagine flying a helicopter at night? So again, a different.
It's a tricky question, actually. Shall you stay with somebody or
It
shall
is,
you
isn't it?
move?
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
And it depends,
Yeah.
obviously. I mean, the trick is if you can contact somebody, then that's all well and good.
Good.
But if you can't
Then you have
contact
to walk out.
then you're going to have to walk
You have to walk out.
Yeah.
The thing to remember is when you phone the police and, you know, 112 in your mobile, and then, you know, you ask for mountain rescue, what you got to remember is there's someone in a warm office who can give advice. So when you're out there and you're in a situation where you've got someone, you've come across an injured party, or someone's got injured in your group, that's actually really quite stressful, quite a stressful situation, and it's quite difficult for you to make a logical decision in that unless you're very experienced, you know. So, you know, when you phone the police, the mountain rescue, then you're going to have someone there who's going to help advise you. You know, and they're going to ask you things about, you know, is this your phone? You phone them on. How's your battery life?
Yeah.
The other people in your group, what equipment have you got?
Where
so
are you?
where are you, etc. So they're going to be very reassuring to help you out, and also they're going to say, look, it's going to take several hours. You know, have you got, you know, maybe have you got a shovel with you to help build a wall of snow to shelter behind to get your group shelter. So the thing to remember is, you know, by phoning the mountain rescue, by phoning the police and asking the mountain rescue, when you've got an injured casualty, they will be able to help you advise you. So.
And I think this is very worth exactly what you said. When you go out with your little group, go through this. Do
It's
it.
really important.
Yeah.
And you will find you will need a little notepad.
Yeah. I mean, every situation's different, isn't it? And we're not going to be able to give a
No.
black and white
No.
answer to
No.
some of these, because it does depend.
But it makes people
on the
think.
circumstances.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've just got a question in on personal locator beacons. So for those people out there who are not sure what they are, personal locator beacons are small electronic gadgets, pretty similar to the size of your mobile phones, and they operate through satellite technology, so they just need a clear view of the sky to operate, unlike a mobile phone, which needs line of sight to a transmitter. And a very useful bit of kit, I would say, if you travel alone in the hills, or you travel to places where you know there's very poor phone reception. Have you guys got any opinions on personal locator beacons?
Again, I worked in the rescue sector, and I'm used to working with beacons in airplanes and boats. I've had them for years, and there's a lot of on the continent. People use them. It's a lot more people using them now. They're a good asset, and if it saves your life, it's a great bit of kit. It's also very good for families who are sitting worrying about people at home. And I know lots of wives and girlfriends who are buying the Mountaineers, the beacon, and it is a good bit of kit.
Because some actually you can have a track function.
Yeah.
Yes,
So
absolutely.
it's a nice,
Spots,
so you can be on the hill and people can see your progress.
Yeah.
So they're quite nice.
So there's
quite good.
different gadgets
Yeah.
that do different jobs.
Yeah,
And again, if
absolutely.
you want more information, folks, then get on our website and it gives you all the background information to personal locator beacons and spots. We've just got a question in on helmets. Now that's an interesting one because I think a lot of people will think that you just put a helmet on if you're going to go and do a rock climb or an ice climb. But is that the case? What do we think about helmets and winter mountains?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. And to be honest, when I go hill walking in winter in Scotland, I the thing I have on my head is my warm hat and my hood. And when it comes to wearing a helmet, it's because I'm going on to train that necessitates the need. As in, I'm going to an area, where there could be, crags above me if I'm going mountaineering, if I'm going climbing. But I'm going hill walking, and I've looked at my planning. Then really, I don't want to be walking around the Scottish mountains day in, day out with a helmet on my head when I'm going walking.
Yeah, I'm the same.
So what you got to do is wearing a helmet. Doesn't mean that suddenly I'm completely safe and I'm totally invincible. You've got to approach anything with the same caution as you would do if you weren't wearing a helmet. But really, I'm putting a helmet on my head because I've considered what the risk is. And if I'm going hill walking, then I'm sort of thinking, well, if I'm going out and I'm bagging some Monroes or some Corbetts that are nice, friendly hills, then and I'm taking the appropriate, I've got the appropriate ability and experience to do that. Then I'm not going to be taking a helmet with me.
I think if there's a lot of people ski touring, going backcountry,
Yeah, that's a good question.
and I think on balance it's probably good to have a helmet then, because potentially you're more likely to fall over on ski or slide on ski or on steep ground on ski, especially when there's snow and the ground becomes firmer. I think it's probably a good thing. I carry a helmet in the winter, especially when it's on ski, when I'm on ski, and especially if the snow conditions are firm and hard, because there's a good likelihood of falling over.
On helmets, for me, I think when you do winter skills, as remember we said, we've got this ice axe, we've got this great pair of crampons, we'll go and wear them and we'll take them out. I think if you go out to do a training of that, where you could end up in kind of 30-degree ground that could be steep, then I think get your helmet in your bag, get it on, make sure it fits under this woolly hat, you need it, and because people slip and fall in these situations.
Yeah, definitely. If you're practicing skills,
Yeah,
like
it's a
ice
one-off.
axe and rest or crampons. It's the start of the season, and you're wearing your crampons again. Then for things like that, definitely, because if you're not as practiced, then there's more chance that you can have a stumble or a slip.
It's a
So
no-brainer.
for skills,
Yeah.
nice one.
We're going to finish off with a couple of questions. One of them is,
good.
would we take kids out in the winter hills? Now, it might be another depends answer. We've probably got
Well-
lots of different views here, but
Well, I don't mind starting off with that
But
one
yeah,
because
JJ.
actually I've been having
Yeah.
that conversation with my
Yeah.
wife just recently because we've got two daughters. Our eldest one is 12, and she's tall and strong. And actually, we've discussed about me taking her out this winter.
yeah,
The problem is finding boots that are going to fit and the kit that's going to fit, because it's not just about being in winter. It's about if you're going out with your children, then their kit needs to reflect what you're wearing. And something I see a lot of, and you see it a lot in skiing actually, is where parents or guardians are really well equipped, and the children with them it's make do,
Yeah.
and it's make do either with siblings' clothing or hand-me-downs. And a lot of the time you can see people wearing children with poor gloves or not the right socks or their ski boots, their walking boots, etc. So what you've got to consider is if you're taking your children out in winter, then they need to be as well equipped as you.
yeah.
And as we know, that's not cheap. And also, as we know, it's quite hard to get hold of the right kit that's going to fit a young person.
And I
So-
guess you've got to be pretty conservative about your agenda for the day
Yeah,
as well, because
yeah,
you know, we might be up for a big day on the hill,
Totally.
but you'd want to start, you know, very gradually.
Yeah,
wouldn't you?
absolutely.
And I think also because the conditions are quite hostile, we're sort of a bit more expressive. We can say, "Look, I'm really cold," and you know, we'll sort things out. But you know, for taking children into a snowy environment, which is fantastic, by the way, I'd really highly recommend it.
Yeah.
You just got to be sharper in terms of how they're reacting and behaving in those cold
Yeah.
conditions.
Yeah.
Yeah, you completely agree. You've got to make sure that they want to come back and enjoy
Make
it.
it fun.
Yeah.
It's got to be fun.
Yeah.
So, and I do see people, especially some adults. My son's done this and that, and this and that, and it's not the son who's doing it, or the daughter. It's the father. You know, you've got to put that out of your mind. Your ambitions have got to be set.
Your ambitions completely change.
And it's got to be, and that's the best thing.
Your ambition is to see them enjoying the winter environment, not
And it
for
is
you,
wonderful.
not for you to do that Monroe you've been desperate
Yeah.
to do for several years.
Yeah.
So
So we've only got time for one more question from the public out there, and it's probably the most important question of the evening: is how is Millie? So, for those of you who don't know who Millie is, Millie
Who's
is
Millie?
the dog. Millie the dog, a very retired search and rescue dog. She's now 12, and she's still partying hard. Still loves the days out on the hills, but like the rest of us, is a bit creaky round the back end. So, on that note, I'm going to ask you boys, what's your favourite hill? What's your favourite hill in winter? And maybe that could be a bit of inspiration for folk looking in this evening and where they might think about aspiring to in the future. Heavy, set us off.
My favourite hill is a no-brainer. It's Angelica, way up in the northwest. It's a wonderful mountain, loads of corries, very few people, a great ridge, and a wonderful setting with the sea in the mountains.
Yeah.
It's very close to Skye as well, which is another great thing.
Yeah.
Mine is actually, again, up in the northwest, is Sullivan.
Yeah.
It's a most magnificent mountain. It's a bastion in a landscape, and it's to me, you know, it's great to be up there. You feel so remote in such a great wilderness.
Yeah. And
Great,
JJ?
they're hard ones to follow. Well, you know, it's hard to pick an individual hill. So really, I'm going to pick an area. I'm going to pop out. And even though I've been going up and down there day in day out for almost 2 decades, but the remoteness of the Cairngorm Plateau it is still breathtaking. And you know, I was up there just last week working on a course, and you know, I still do not get bored with the view at all. So for me, it's my local hills.
Yeah. And I'm going to move even wider than that, because for me, it's not about particularly the mountain. It's about the people you're with, the experience that you're sharing, and the weather. It's the kind of the whole picture. So even the most kind of lowly, roly-poly mountain on the right day with the right people can be just the most amazing day out. And I think that's the great thing about the Scottish mountains, isn't it?
Yeah,
Great.
great.
There's a lectures, Heather, might be worth mentioning.
Yes, there's some lectures people might want to come and join us at. Yeah. But, I mean, first of all, before I do a bit of promotion for that, I'd really like to thank you guys for joining us on the settee this
Thank
evening.
you.
Yes,
It's
thank
a
you.
bit like Good Morning Britain or something.
It is,
isn't
it is.
Our version of it.
Without
And thank you to you guys out there for joining us and tuning in.
and the girls behind doing all the work.
Yeah. Yes,
well,
thank you.
exactly.
Thank you.
Behind
Yeah,
the scenes,
there
guys,
is-
and it wouldn't have happened without them. We've got Vicky from Glenmore Lodge and Emily from Mountaineering Scotland. who've
Wonderful.
been, working very, very hard behind the scenes. So we'd like to know what you thought about this evening, because it is a first for us, as you can tell. We're not exactly fluid at this. And if you thought it was valuable and good, please share it. But also, please let us know, because it's potential for the future for us to run other events such as this. And we've shared various links on our website, so if we've been talking about weather or avalanche or kit, then it's all there for you to go and have a look at and get more details. And as Heavy mentioned, we've got the big winter lecture series coming up, so we're going around 12 different venues. We've got Tysos, Cotswolds stores around the city venues. Some of them are already fully booked, which is amazing. And Heavy and I are also doing lectures in February in Aviemore as well. So if you're local to us here, then please come and join us. And of course, Mountaineering Scotland wouldn't happen without your support. It's a members organisation, so if you're not already a member of Mountaineering Scotland and you think you'd like to join us to get access to things like subsidised training courses, then please take a look and come and meet us. Thank you very much, folks. Bye.
Yep.
Bye.
Good night.